All right. It's Friday and we are on air. It's been a while and I hope you're all doing well. Are you? You can comment below and let me know. Since we are live to tape, I can display your comments on screen. I do hope you're all doing well. Happy Friday, and as I already said, it's been a while since I've had a live broadcast, so welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. I don't know if you know this, but on October 11th, it was the anniversary of the first episode of this podcast. Yay! The episode featured none other than Tommy Chong. Thank you to everybody that has supported me over the years. We've got a great episode for you today. I've got a surprise guest, and we'll be discussing the latest attempts to criminalize cannabis products across the United States. That surprise guest will be joining us. We'll be talking about the final week of veto session and what it may or may not mean for cannabis policy in Illinois. I will also discuss the latest story with Circle K and Target. They announced they're going to start carrying THC products. Never thought I'd see that story. Definitely interesting times we are living in. Once again, we are live on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, so feel free to drop your comments or thoughts, your questions or thoughts in the comments, and we may feature them on screen. If you haven't already, hit that like button. And if you're catching this later and you're wondering how to catch the show live, I'd say the best way is to go on over to colememo.com/YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you never miss a live stream. This podcast is also available for streaming on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and other podcasting platforms, or at colememo.com. Let's go indeed. Thank you, Birdie Durger, for tuning in. And folks, if you want your comments on screen just like Birdie's are, drop them below. We can feature them on screen. To support this show, go on over to colememo.com/support or become a patron at colememo.com/Patreon. That's colememo.com/PATREON. You can also sign up for email updates. I have not sent out an email yet, I don't think, but you can sign up for them in the case that I do at colememo.com/subscribe. The plan is to share news, updates, and upcoming show information every so often, nothing spammy. So again, be sure to subscribe and stay in the loop. And if you haven't already, one of the best ways to show your support for this show, especially if you're watching or listening on platforms like YouTube, is by hitting the like button, subscribing, or giving the show a favorable rating from wherever you're tuning in from. It really does help more than you might think. So since a lot of my listeners are tuning in from Illinois, we'll start off today's show by talking about the upcoming veto session and the recent allegations of mislabeled products in Illinois dispensaries. There is so much to unpack, and as always, we'll break it right down. We're going to break it down and roll it up right here on
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
I mean, you have to respect the memo.
Illinois lawmakers are headed back to Springfield next week to finish out their fall veto session. On the agenda, funding public transportation, regulating hemp sales, and managing energy reform, just to name a few.
So let's talk about the final week of the Illinois fall veto session, shall we? Policy nerds, thank you for tuning in to the Cole Memo. Up until recently, so we're going to talk about what it could mean for cannabis policy, first of all. And up until recently, most of the coverage of this year's session has focused on transit funding, energy issues, and even state-level fallout from national politics. But one topic that's now starting to make its way back into the media coverage, or at least from that one source that we just saw, are discussions around federally legal cannabis products, better known as hemp, which could have ripple effects for both consumers and small businesses across the state of Illinois. Once again, you're tuned into the Cole Memo, and you can find all of my content at colememo.com. The show is recorded live to tape, which means your comments can be a part of the conversation as I go through this story. Please comment below. We may display your comments on screen. You can also call in at colememo.com/live. I'll have that link ready here in just a moment. So the veto session is short, and it's typically used for overriding the governor's vetoes, making budget adjustments, and addressing last-minute policy changes. The final meetings for this veto session are set to occur on October 28th through the 30th. There was some meetings last week. From what I understand, I don't think the Senate even got together. The House did, but nothing moved forward. Based on the conversations I've had with people in Springfield, it does not sound like any major cannabis measures will move forward this time. Whether we're talking removing law enforcement's ability to search your vehicle based on the smell of unburnt cannabis alone, which is something we've covered for quite a while on this show. That's not going to be moving forward. And to be clear, aside from the issue that I just mentioned, there really aren't meaningful reforms that would affect consumers that are, I should just say, that are part of meaningful discussions. We did see some policy proposals like the proposal to increase plant count for medical patients. I'd call that meaningful. There were a few other proposals that seemed nice, but from what I understand, there haven't been serious discussions about those proposals, which is a important distinction. You know, policy can be proposed, but whether or not it's actually discussed is I guess the important part. So necessary changes like ending the continued criminalization of cannabis, allowing all adults to home grow, or other changes that advocates have been calling for since legalization took effect. None of that's part of the conversation. Instead, lawmakers are prioritizing transit, energy, and budget issues. Big picture stuff. I mean, I'm not trying to negate those things. I just am being honest about what's on the table here. I've been told by several sources that hemp regulation likely would not come up during this session. And in some cases, I was told that new legislation was being held for the next session. That said, everything can change at a moment's notice in Springfield, Illinois. Recent reporting raised the subject of hemp regulations with Illinois House Representative Cam Buckner.
So Governor Pritzker has also been pushing for hemp regulation for months now. Representative Buckner, do you think hemp should be, speaking of government regulation, should there be more regulation for hemp?
Yeah, we have to deal with this because we know what's happening with intoxicating hemp across this country, but specifically in Illinois, is that young people are getting a hold of it. It's doing bad things to them physically and from a health perspective. And so we have to get a hold of what's happening here. What I will say is there has to be also a way to balance this. What you're hearing is that a lot of minority folks who don't feel like they have an actual lane into the legal cannabis space are in the hemp space. And they want to be a part of the commerce and economic development in that space as well, right? And so we've got to find a way to balance this, to land this plane so that we are keeping young people safe, but we're also not shutting down businesses and giving people a chance to operate.
1 minute left.
So that second half of the statements we just heard Illinois House Representative Cam Buckner say, you know, the concerns about shutting down small businesses and people that are just trying to be honest and make a buck. That really echoes what we heard from House Speaker Chris Welch during the last legislative session.
Welch says tensions ran high due to lingering bad feelings about the lack of minority ownership in the legal cannabis system.
There's a perception that the social equity program was not done correctly in the cannabis space. And here we have an industry where there are a lot of black and brown owners currently in existence, and the legislation that's currently proposed would literally put those people out of business right now. And it would turn it over to the cannabis people.
So in case you don't know or haven't been paying attention, this is something we've covered on the show, but just a recap for folks that, you know, aren't in this. I know that, you know, things move fast and sometimes policy can be boring to follow, frankly. This topic heated up during a previous legislative session when Governor Pritzker threw his support behind a measure that critics argued would criminalize all sales of THC products from being sold anywhere but the small and tightly controlled number of Illinois dispensaries. Critics also pointed out that the measure would have imposed $10,000 daily fines. That's $10,000 fines that could be wagered on you daily, on top of the pre-existing criminal penalties that never were addressed with the legalization of cannabis in Illinois. The criminalization of cannabis very much so continues. And in doing so, if this legislation would have come to pass, it would have significantly increased penalties for the cultivation, processing, and sale of cannabis flower, concentrates, and infused products. The measure ultimately failed due to the lack of support from the legislature.
The governor thought he had 60 House Democratic votes for the measure. Welch says that's not true.
It wasn't even close. The governor gave us a roll call. He knew beforehand that we were going to verify that roll call, and that roll call wasn't even close.
The governor told reporters that during a private House Democratic caucus, officials from his administration were verbally abused by lawmakers, and he blames Welch for not intervening.
Why did the governor's members of his team leave out of that meeting in tears?
Well, listen, the governor wasn't present in our caucus meeting, and it got a little emotional. I did talk to those members immediately after caucus, and it's my understanding they reached out to those staffers immediately after I talked to them. Caucus, it gets emotional sometimes.
So, thank you everybody that has been tuning in and dropping comments. I really appreciate it. It does remain unclear whether or not we'll see action on hemp or cannabis policy during the veto session. In any case, we'll keep you apprised of all developments related to Illinois cannabis policy right here on the Cole Memo. Even if cannabis reform doesn't move forward this month, these conversations could set the stage for the spring session, when lawmakers will once again have the opportunity to revisit the direction of cannabis policy in Illinois. And on that note, I will say that I will be having an elected representative on the show soon. It's been a while since we've had elected representatives on the show. We'll be talking to one that has been very much involved in cannabis policy and getting their thoughts on the matter. But now I want to know, what are your thoughts? What do you think? Is Illinois stalling on needed cannabis reform? Or is this like sort of a strategic patience while the state figures out how all of these facets of our cannabis policy should fit together in a way that's beneficial to both small and large businesses, and perhaps most importantly, cannabis consumers? Am I being a little too optimistic with that question? Some people did drop some thoughts, and I'll start to read them. Please comment below and we can display your thoughts. You can also call into the show at colememo.com/live. It's very easy to join. You don't have to turn your video on. You don't even have to tell us your real name, though I would appreciate, we should, give me a first name or a nickname or something. You can call in once again at colememo.com/live. Super easy to call in. We have people call in. We've been having people call in, which is cool. Genetic Memory Farm says, "Good day, peeps. I hope you're all safe and stoned." Right back at you. So our friend Birdie says, "Patients' ability to shop at adult use stores with discounts is necessary." And I think what you mean is, in case listeners aren't aware, medical patients can only go to one of the 55 dispensaries to buy cannabis at the medical tax rate. If you go to one of the adult use cannabis stores, even though they sell all of the same products, you cannot purchase the cannabis at the medical cannabis tax rate from an adult use cannabis store. What some of these stores are doing to sort of offset that is giving a sort of discount at checkout. But at the end of the day, you're still paying that adult use tax. And there have been proposals, which is what Birdie is referring to make it so that medical patients could shop at any dispensary in the state of Illinois if they provide at the medical cannabis tax rate, if they provide their medical cannabis card, which makes sense because, again, it's all the same. If you go to a dual use dispensary, which means they have both a medical and adult use dispensary, from what I understand, if you see anything, and I've talked to regulators about this, and I've even talked to the cannabis businesses about this, they've told me, if you see anything on the adult use menu and you're at a dual use dispensary, in other words, again, one with both a medical license and an adult use license, you can pick anything off of the adult use menu and buy it at that medical cannabis tax rate. First of all, businesses told me there should never be, the businesses I spoke to told me there should never be a scenario where there's something on the adult use menu that's not on their medical cannabis menu. But in the case that they are, from what they tell me, they should be able to switch it over. So Birdie asks, are there any medical only dispensaries or are they all dual? I think they are all dual. I could be wrong. Please comment below, folks, if you know more than me. I believe that they're all dual because the original 55 dispensaries were given the ability to have an adult use license at their medical establishment, they were also given the ability to open up another establishment. So they got a +1 license. They were able to open up another standalone um, dispensary that was adult use only. So, great question just came in from Genetic Memory Farms. How about we establish a caregiver program like Michigan had? The poorest patients cannot afford to buy medicine at retail. So, why not? I agree with you. I completely agree with you. This should absolutely be something that we allow in Illinois. Unfortunately, the Illinois cannabis program does seem to be really focused on profits, and so I don't know how else to put it. Our regulators point to Michigan in that caregiver model, and they say that Michigan's a failure. That's what our regulators have said in the past, because they believe that all sales should happen via the point of sale, via seed to sale. That all sales should be tracked and taxed, um, and that's a regulator, right? So uh, Brandon says, I am a licensed caregiver in Illinois. We just need to expand the program. Absolutely. And, one of the things that I sort of was alluding to earlier that I don't know that maybe it wasn't clear that I was alluding to it. So I'll make this brief. But if you look at the Illinois cannabis law, and I'll pull it up right now and put it on screen so that we all know how to look at the Illinois cannabis law. So I'm Googling Illinois CRTA cannabis law, and I'm trying to find it. Let's throw it up on our screen. Maybe. There we go. All right. Not finding it, but let's ilga.gov. It's Cannabis Control Act. This one at the top is where all of the penalties were established, and the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act is what supposedly legalized cannabis. But again, I'm going to stress this law that was made in 1978, the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, did not repeal most of the criminal penalties within that act. So that's why I always say legalization in air quotes if you didn't know, because I don't think cannabis is legal until you can buy, grow, sell, use, possess, gift as much as you want, need, or please. And I may have missed a few things there, but that's generally speaking what I say. Okay, so let's look this up. So we're on the cannabis law, and I'm looking up agent. We're on the Illinois General Assembly's website. Actually, I'm searching up registered agent. And let's see here. Maybe that's not it. Temporary medical patient. Sorry, folks. We're trying to find this here. 5 plants. How about we do that? Okay. So we're looking at the home grow section. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And you can see that it says cannabis plants may only be tended by registered qualifying patients who reside at their residence, or now right away, or as I always like to say, if it's, if the plants can be tended by the registered patient, or that means somebody else can tend to the plants, their authorized agent attending to their resident for brief periods, such as when the qualifying patient is temporarily away from the residence. I've asked the state of Illinois, what is an authorized agent? Is that your caregiver? The state responded and said the term authorized agent is not defined in the law. What I propose is that, and I've proposed this to advocacy groups in the past, is that we change the word registered agent. Well, we change the word agent to caregiver. And then, boom, the problem is solved. You can have caregivers tending to your plants. I will acknowledge that for brief periods, such as when the qualifying patient is temporarily away from the residence, could probably be struck. Why does it have to only be for brief periods? What if the patient is, needs a caregiver? Typically, when a patient has a caregiver, they need a caregiver and they can't grow their own plants. I'm just saying. I don't want to make assumptions here, But I think that the flexibility should be given there, especially for somebody with a registered caregiver. But I am on my soapbox here, folks. Any other thoughts before we keep this show moving and discuss the allegations of mislabeled products on Illinois cannabis dispensary shelves? Any other thoughts? Once again, you can call into the show at colememo.com/live. It's been a while since we've had a live caller. Would love it if somebody could call in. All right. Well, I think we'll keep the show moving. K and MJ squared. I'm not sure what you're saying. That would be ideal for hemp producers like myself. I'm not sure what you're referencing there. Maybe you're behind on the show. Feel free to clarify. But I guess what we'll do is we'll keep things moving. Yeah, let's just keep things moving. Up next, we're going to be discussing the allegations of mislabeled products on the shelves of Illinois dispensaries. Let's do it. Okay, so this is going to be a quick little segment. A viral LinkedIn post claims that an Illinois flower product labeled at 46% total THC came back at 28.19% total THC when the buyer sent it to a licensed lab. The post raises questions about lab methods, COAs, and what to do when numbers look far outside of the norm. Now, I'm going to keep my coverage on this brief because the author of this post is going to be joining me live tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. to walk through their receipts and answer your questions. Once again, that's tomorrow, October 25th at 10:15 a.m. Central Time. We'll outline what he found, why it matters, and maybe we'll talk about issues we've covered in the past, like potency inflation, lab practices, and transparency. And yes, this is not the first time potency and testing have been in the spotlight here in Illinois. I'll recap our earlier reporting with the Chicago Sun-Times here in a minute, and we'll toss it to a clip to watch. So if you're just tuning in right now, you're watching the Cole Memo. For full coverage and past episodes, visit thecolememo.com. This show is listener funded, supported by listeners like you. So if you value independent coverage like this, please support it by liking, sharing, or supporting me at colememo.com/support. And I've mentioned it a few times, but we are live to tape. So if you drop your comments below, they might make it on screen. You can also call in at colememo.com/live. And links to our sources and stories featured in today's episode will be in the description, as always. So let's take a look at this post that went viral. I'll read it aloud for some of my listeners. Let's throw it on screen here. Kirk Berry says, I went into an Ascend wellness store in Illinois recently to make a few purchases. I had seen a flower for sale by Ozone advertised at 46.31% total THC. That's not a typo. Natural flower at 46%. Interestingly, Ozone is a house brand of Ascend. So if you have an in-house brand of flower advertised at 46% being sold by the parent dispense. So you have I botched that sentence. I apologize. Kirk says, I investigate matters assuming a null hypothesis. In short, nothing is wrong, and I'm not going to find any significant discrepancy between label information and the product in the package. So he hand-delivered the sample to a licensed lab in the state of Illinois, and the results are that the flower he purchased is 28.19%, not 46%. And he says this represents a 39% difference. I'm not good at math, but 40 is 46 minus 29. Does that equal 39? Because I don't think that's the case. I might be doing the math wrong here, though, folks. He will be joining us tomorrow to discuss these findings. He says this is a consumer fraud issue. Regardless of the grower's or seller's intent, the purpose of a label is that the information on it accurately reflects the products in it. He says it's also an anomaly worth further investigation. Claiming 46% total THC on flower is a modern-day miracle. I hope the lights and bells and caution alarms were going off at ACT Labs when they saw this result from their test and certified this percentage, assuming they did. Um, yeah, just a lot of different findings here. Like I said, we're going to be joined by Kirk tomorrow to sort of go over some of these findings. I will throw this back up on screen as well. Here we go. Uh, that's what I meant to do. So this is the rest of his post. He shows the package here. You can see the 45% THCA, which makes it a total of 46.31% THC. What do we think here? I see the comments are rolling in. He says in a recent post, he discussed ceilings on flower total THC testing. In other words, like what should the highest the non-infused sample test out at? It sounds like he's asking. So I'm going to be asking him about this, his findings. I also want to know what his answer is, right? Because people point out testing results like this, but like what is the difference here? Genetic Memory Farms says it's a 39% reduction of the originally claimed number. That's the part that's, you feel free to call me, again, I'm not good at math. I preface that. But if the original number was 46% and the number was actually 28, 46 minus 28 is not 39, is it? Or am I just, I don't know. Get back to me on that, please. Birdie says IDFPR or IDOA needs to buy products from shelves and verify those test results. We know there's a problem there. So here's the thing. I have asked the state about this in the past. We actually just recently wrote an article on the subject. If you go to colememo.com, you can see it. I'll try to throw this in the show notes, but the headline is From Testing Labs to Patient Portals, Key Takeaways from a board meeting that I attended. And if we scroll down to Illinois Department of Ag, they have the Bureau of Cannabis Testing. And so David Lakeman, the regulator there, said, so as complaints come to us or if there are issues, we're able to investigate those and do that testing in-house and have full chain of custody. This allows us to serve as both a better resource and it serves us as the regulator for independent testing laboratories in the state to be sure their methodology is good, that the structure is good, that they're approaching things in a good manner, I guess, and that we're getting consistent results. He also said we want to be aware of some of the lab shopping issues that have impacted other legal states. He says we want to make sure we're staying ahead of that, and again, providing both a resource to the industry as well as a regulatory tool for ourselves, making sure that the product is safe and well tested. He says it's our belief that safe testing is a cornerstone. It is foundational to a legal industry, whether it be medical or adult use. We want to be sure that we're meeting our obligations there and doing our best to meet the mission. Here's some pictures of the lab that's being built. And yeah, so I mean, your idea there, it sounds like they're getting started, and it sounds like they got started. We'll cover this in a little bit, based on an investigation that we helped with. We helped the Chicago Sun-Times with. I'm saying we collectively, not only you, but listeners of the show. I know some listeners of the show participated in this investigation, and there were some interesting results, not only with the testing results, but I think how the state responded, which is building a lab like this. I recall that being one of their main responses. So, Good Vibe Vet is commenting and said the dispo said it was a problem with printing the label. Interesting. So they commented on it. I'll have to ask him. He's going to be on tomorrow, so we could definitely ask him about that. He said, and Good Vibe Vet also adds, Ascend/Ozone wasn't the only mislabeled product, my experience. Yet, just a small story that people might find crazy. I knew somebody that used to work at a dispensary, and one time they received like an ounce of grams or something like that, but all of the grams had eighths, like a sticker for an eighth on it, and they had to destroy all the product. And I don't mean by like rolling it up and smoking it. As you probably know, if you work worked at a dispensary or for people that work in dispensaries, um, destroying a product, you have to like mix the product with like kitty litter and soil. The protocol is different depending on the dispensary, but for the most part, you put it into like a composting machine and it mixes into soil so that basically, I guess, people can't consume it. So that's interesting. Good vibe vet. Thank you for commenting with that extra perspective. Um, yeah, I'll have to ask him about that tomorrow and see if are you saying that this dispensary definitely reached out to Kirk and sort of responded. Let's see which dispensary was it. We'll pull this back up. It looks like the dispensary he got it from is Ascend on Horizon Drive, which I don't know where that is. Oh, you're not saying that they reached out. Thank you for clarifying that, because I was confused by your comments. So I'll be sure to ask about that. Genetic Memory Farms says the math is 28 and 46 is 60%. So it tested 39% lower than claimed. I am just bad at math because none of this makes sense. One would say it is 18 percentage points lower for a reduction of 39%. Can I ask other people, is any of this making sense to you right now, or am I just high? All right. Well, let's keep it moving here. This pattern fits what we've discussed in the past. In my interview with Chicago Sun-Times investigators, Tom Schuba and Stephanie Zimmerman, they described assembling thousands of state test records, then buying 10 products and commissioning independent testing.
With cannabis sales booming in Illinois, we started with a simple question. What's in your weed? Sun-Times reporters spent months analyzing thousands of laboratory results for failing weed, which were filed with the State Department of Agriculture. The most frequent case of failing weed? Too much yeast and mold. Experts told us pre-rolled joints can be vulnerable to such contamination.
Yeast and mold is probably the most famous around the country right now in the cannabis industry. It's the one test that a lot of people seem to have trouble with. Molds are spore-based. We're breathing in yeast right now. So if there's yeast in your air, there's going to be yeast on the product.
So we went shopping. We bought 10 samples at 8 dispensaries around Chicago and the suburbs. 9 were pre-rolls, 1 was fresh cannabis flower. We brought them to a state-approved cannabis testing lab for analysis, where the outside packaging was carefully opened and the samples dropped into the lab's sterile containers. Each sample was identified with a number and a letter. Here's what the lab found. 8 of the 9 pre-rolls tested above the state limits for at least one microbiological contaminant, such as yeast and mold, total viable aerobic bacteria, coliform bacteria, and bile-tolerant gram-negative bacteria. 4 tested above state limits for all of those. The fresh cannabis flower tested well under state limits for those contaminants. None of the 10 samples had detectable E. coli or salmonella, mycotoxins, or pesticide residue, and none of the samples exceeded state limits on heavy metals. Of special concern are a type of mold called aspergillus and mycotoxins, which are toxic compounds created by molds, neither of which were found in these tests.
Often if I get a flower sample in here, more than likely it's going to have like a mold colony or 2 on it. That's just telling me that we have mold, but it's probably not aspergillus, because we're not seeing those mycotoxins coming.
We reached out to the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois for comment, and here's what we received. The safety and quality of cannabis products and the well-being of patients and consumers are top priorities of Illinois' medical and adult use cannabis industry. The Cannabis Business Association of Illinois will continue to work with regulators and other key stakeholders on the continued development of testing standards to ensure consumers are protected and continue to enjoy the highest quality products.
Once again, I sat down with Stephanie and Tom, who were featured in that segment. They came on the show to discuss their investigation. I'll link that episode in the show notes. In case you didn't know, if you look in the description for the episode from wherever you're listening from, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, whatever, there should be a link to the show notes. I take a lot of time to throw all the links that I reference in the show so that you can dig deeper, because it seems like you're all interested in this stuff since you tune in. So hope you appreciate the work, trying to share my sources, trying to allow you to dig deeper. And that's how you can dig deeper. Check out the show notes. During the episode, we discussed ongoing whispers about lab shopping, murky recall transparency. Do you guys remember that mag land race quarantine? You know what I'm talking about? And the state's plan to stand up a Department of Agriculture lab. Hey, we talked about that. That's what we were just mentioning. So apparently the idea was to test the testers at the time, even though I've asked about that, and the answers I've gotten are all over the map. We even talked about remediation and the lack of clear labeling around it. So be sure to check out that episode once again. It'll be linked in the show notes. Okay. What do you think, though? Folks, we've dropped comments. I'll try to display them. I saw somebody said they were going to be calling in soon, so that's cool. They said they were waiting until their pizza came in. I'm jealous. Now I want pizza. You can call in at colememo.com/live. Drop your comments below. People are saying the math makes sense. It's 39% of the larger number, which equals the smaller number. And I want to be clear, I'm not questioning the math. I don't understand the math, I guess. I think that's what it is. Cole Cram, fellow Cole joining the show, says I'm not high enough for math. Oh, got it. I thought I was too high to do math, but instructions unclear. I will increase. Cheers, folks. Other people are, I'm curious. What do you think about all this stuff? Cole says now he also wants pizza. I think it might be a Friday pizza night, Friday night pizza. I think it's notable to see a 46. So you see it labeled as 46%. It comes back as 28. First of all, I would have been suspect of the 46%. But what do you think? Is it an innocent sampling error? Is it bad data, or is it something else? Comment below or call in now at colememo.com/live. I'd love to display your thoughts on screen. And again, join us tomorrow at 10:15 a.m., where that person that made that post and commissioned the retest will be here to answer any questions you might have. Cole, I really hope I see you there. Brandon, I hope I see you there as well. Genetic Memory Farms, everybody that's tuning in, of course. I mentioned a few of you, though, Brandon and Cole, because I know that you both either cultivate hemp or are involved in hemp in somehow. And he does a lot of tests on hemp products as well. And the findings are interesting, to say the least. So definitely tune in, and I'm curious what you all think. If you'd like to see another show he's done in the past, he recently went on the Dales Report, and they mostly talked about his hemp testing. But what I think is more interesting is this stuff that we're talking about right now, where you go to a dispensary and test, sort of audit the label, if you will, and the results are completely off. Hawaii Sustainable, I've not seen you in a while. I hope you're well. They say, LOL, lab results are never reliable. Not breaking news. That dude just looking for attention during the circus circuit. The seniors seem to see through his BS interview this morning. No food testing. What are you talking about? I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I definitely would love to check that out. Testing the stem in with the bud can affect it as well. Here's my question. I see a lot of people, they'll test THCA flower and they'll say, Hawaii says he was on a senior show. Please send me what you're talking about, or like, I don't know what a senior show is. Is it like for old people? Is that what you're talking about? Or what are we talking about here? But aloha, right back at you. One of the things that investigators point out with things like this, and then we'll keep the show moving, is they'll buy a THCA product and they'll say, well, this tested at 0.87 THCA, and the COA says 0.3% THCA or below that. Sorry, I mean to say it'll test at 0.87 THC, not THCA. I apologize, folks. But the label will say 0.3% THC. And I've seen people say, based on that result, well, this isn't hemp, this is marijuana. And I get why you would think that. if you know the distinction, the arbitrary distinction between hemp and marijuana. Of course, we're talking cannabis right now. Everything, all of this is cannabis. But if you know the distinction, some people might look at that and say, well, 0.87% delta 9 THC, that's marijuana under federal law. But the lab result is saying that it's 0.3. From what I understand, it very well could have been 0.3 when it was harvested, and likely was, because the plant produces very low amounts of delta 9 THC. But when you put a product on the shelf, it ages. And as a result, that delta 9% increases. So, I don't know. I find results like that interesting. And I guess my question in bringing that up is, I'm under the impression that if it tests compliant when it was harvested, that it is compliant, no matter how much it ages. Let me know if I'm wrong on that, because I very well could be. Folks, let's talk about the rise of THC in everyday stores right here on
The Cole Memo.
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 The Cole Memorandums.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
This drug is dangerous. You cannot play with it. It's not funny. It's not something to laugh about. Good people don't smoke marijuana.
All right, you've probably, if you haven't heard about this one, this is a crazy story. Two major retail chains recently announced that they will now carry THC beverages, and it's sparking new conversations about consumer access and what this could mean for the future of cannabis policy. Once again, if you're tuning right now, we are live. If you're tuning in right now, we are live. I'm Cole Preston. You're tuned into the Cole Memo. Make sure to subscribe at colememo.com/YouTube. If you haven't already, smash that like button so that you can support the show. And of course, make sure that you never miss an episode. So Target, yes, that Target is soft launching THC infused beverages in select Minnesota stores. I'll throw this up on the screen here. According to company executives and other industry sources, the rollout includes about a dozen different brands that are now available on shelves in 10 locations across the state. And it's a big deal, not just because Target is one of the largest retailers in the country, but I think it signals how quickly cannabis is being normalized in mainstream commerce. You see a place like Target pick this up, and it's like, wow. Yeah, I think the cat's out of the bag here. This all comes at an interesting time. So we see some federal lawmakers angling for a ban on cannabis products, and we'll talk about that here on the show in just a minute. We'll be joined by a special guest to do that. This ban at a federal level would target products containing any amount of THC, despite the federal legalization of cannabis products like the ones that are now being sold or will be sold at Target. The lineup of brands being sold includes Birdie, Can, Giggly, High Seltzer, Indeed, Senorita, Stigma, Shirley, Trail Magic, Wonder Wild, and Wink. You're welcome for the free advertising. And I say all those names not to give them free advertising per se, but to point out that what's particularly notable is that Wild and Can are typically found inside Schedule I dispensaries, not in the drink aisle at a big box store. Whether this expands nationally or, whether this expands to other targets, I guess I should say, remains to be seen. But the timing could not be more interesting. In case you didn't know, Minnesota has been ahead of the curve since 2022 when they basically had legislation that codified the Farm Bill at a state level. This effectively means that all edible and beverage products with a total of 5 milligrams of THC per serving and 50 milligrams per package are completely legal and can be sold outside of Schedule I dispensaries. This is something that I'm not aware of many states that have achieved, codifying the sale of cannabis products at normal retail outlets. And so as a result, we've seen cannabis drinks sold inside of liquor stores, traditional retail, movie theaters, and now large grocery stores like Target. I think it's a major sign that the wall separating cannabis and everyday commerce is starting to crack. And I'm curious what you all think about that. Wow, the comments are flowing in. Hawaii says strange things are afoot at the Circle K. They're on target. Yeah, and I was just about to say another sign that cannabis is breaking out of dispensary walls is that Circle K is gearing up for a national rollout of hemp-derived THC beverages. So that's a whole other thing. Mr. M says Target's HQ is in Minnesota. I didn't know that. That makes it even more interesting to learn. And Genetic Memory Farm says that's how we get it accepted. Smoking is unhealthy. As I'm smoking a joint, maybe I should crack open a cannabis beverage. Hell yeah. I recently went to my local gas station and they have these 20 milligram beverages for $3 crazy. And to Cannabis Critique's point, Norby's going to drink 2.5 milligrams and think they're wilding out. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. And you know what? I am opposed to low dose caps and all that. But what I think will happen if we do something like Minnesota has, where they do have sort of a low dose cap, 5 milligrams per serving. Once you start drinking those 5 milligrams per serving, it's going to be a matter of 2 weeks before you start going, yeah, these dose caps are fucking stupid. I think it's just a matter of time, right? So get our foot in the door, if you will. Cheers. This one has 20 milligrams of THC, 10 milligrams of CBD, and I got it for $3 at a gas station. Bought a fucking 24 pack for $85, which I realize is expensive, but when you consider I've bought another 24 packs of drinks for much more, that's a good fucking price. Anyways, the ubiquitous roadside dealer and convenience store chain Circle K plans to start selling hemp-derived THC beverages in as many as 3,000 stores nationwide sometime next year. From what I understand, they've already started in Florida. Like, I think Senorita, and by the way, Senorita, who's being sold in Target, who was recently featured in sort of a there was a giveaway on the lakefront, and it was a big news story. And Governor Pritzker was asked, "Hey, there's THC drinks just being given away on the lakefront in Chicago. What the hell is going on?" And he's like, "Oh, these hemp people. Yeah, this is why we got to crack down on hemp." He didn't say exactly that. What's funny about Senorita is that Senorita is owned by GTI, which is one of the largest cannabis brands, not only in this state but arguably in the world, one of the only profitable ones. And again, normally you only find GTI's products within Schedule 1 dispensaries. Now you can find them, I guess, on the lakefront and in Target, at least in Minnesota. And now Circle K in Florida. I think I saw a post like that. Cannabis Critique says he's still got a 50 milligram Bluff Pop in the fridge. Yeah, dude. Me too. I'm saving my 50. I've got one right here, actually. It's warm, but to throw it in the fridge, I think I've got one other in the fridge, so I've got 2 left, 2 of the original Bluff Pops. Anyways, I've seen many observers say that cannabis products sold alongside other products on the mainstream shelves rather than dispensaries, rather than only in dispensaries, is the industry's next major evolution. What do you think? Circle K and Target are following in the footsteps of businesses like major liquor retailers like Total Wine and Spirits. I've seen them at Benny's Beverage Depot, which is like at least a liquor chain here in Illinois. I saw them at Neiman Market stores. I think it was called Harvest Market, which is owned by Neiman's. And yeah, as somebody's pointing out, GTI, who owns Incredible Edibles, they sell their hemp THC products through Herb. Yep. Somebody says, who tests the drinks? It's a good question. Depending on the company you get it from, they'll provide a COA. So like, for example, I've gotten drinks from Cantrip, and they provide tests that you can look at to see, if you want to see that. So GTI is his guys too. They must not have told him. Yep. So again, what do you think? Should cannabis sales be allowed outside of dispensaries? Should we allow cannabis sales in grocery stores, gas stations, and other traditional retail spaces, or should they stay limited to these Schedule 1 dispensaries? I'll tell you that when think it was Washington first legalized it, which I believe was at the same time as Colorado. But I had a friend from Washington, and one of the questions I asked him, he told me, "Cole, did you see Washington legalized weed?" I was like, "Oh, wow, that's crazy." And so I asked him, I was like, "So does that mean like tomorrow if you go to a gas station, like there's going to be like fucking weed like next to the cigarettes and stuff?" And he was like, I don't know. I don't know." It's just funny. That was my first thought. I mean, I had seen things at the time that I knew there were dispensaries, but I think I associated dispensaries with like medical. I thought like, oh, if you have a medical card, you go to a dispensary because it's like this curated process, and you have to go there because it's like a medical thing. It's almost like the pharmacy. But I always thought like when it was just legal, it's going to be wherever. And yeah. Birdie says, props for stashing the Bluff Pops aside. I chugged mine. I will say they do have they've rolled out new sodas. They sent shout out to River Bluff. They are a social equity license holder in the state of Illinois. They also sell hemp to finance that operation, from what I understand. They've been on the show in the past. They make these products we're talking about, the Bluff Punch Pops. They don't make these anymore, I don't think. But now they have these new sodas called Current, and I've tried a few, and they taste just like the Bluff Pops. So, all right, folks. Well, we're going to be bringing on a guest here in just a moment. And it looks like we need to cancel tomorrow's show. I just got a message from Kirk. He says he's going to be on the road all day tomorrow. So I apologize. I'm about to cancel that show I announced. I'll try to make more announcements. But if you were here when I announced that show, he sent me his calendar, so I'm going to have to find a new date. But we are going to have to reschedule that show. So stay tuned for that. I did want to just share that. And again, if you want to see that full post that I shared earlier, that'll be in the show notes. But let's keep it moving. We'll bring on our guest. We're going to talk about some moves at the federal level, which, like I say, could spell the end for hemp. And so if you like having cannabis drinks delivered to your door, I think this next segment is for you. Pay attention, folks. Let's keep it moving right here on the Cole Memo. So, well, 1 second. Hawaii Sustainable says, good riddance to bad, rubbish guest anyway. Well, come on. We'll bring him on, and please tune in when he does. I'd love to air any questions that you have, but we're going to keep it moving and bring on our guests. Thanks for tuning in to the Cole Memo. Major retailers like Major retailers like Target and Circle K are proving there's real consumer demand for THC products and a workable regulatory path. A new threat is emerging at the federal level. A proposal moving through Congress could wipe out the federally legal cannabis market overnight by redefining hemp in a way that would criminalize products for millions of Americans that are currently buying them legally. To explain what's happening and how we can help stop it, I'm joined by Jim Higdon. Jim, you've been on the show in the past. In fact, I'm flashing on the screen right now that you were on episode 210. So if people want to take a deeper dive into your past, I'll have that linked in the show notes. But please introduce yourself and tell us what is going on right now.
Hey, Cole, thanks for having me again. And it's good to be back. I'm Jim Higdon. I'm co-founder of Cornbread Hemp, author of a book called The Cornbread Mafia, a nonfiction account of Kentucky's role in the greater American cannabis universe. And by virtue of having been an investigative reporter and book author before being co-founder of a hemp brand, it's put me on the front lines of the policy battles that we're dealing with at a state and federal level across America today. Look at that sexy homepage.
Yeah, but people can go to cornbreadhemp.com to get your legal cannabis products shipped directly to their door or find them in store. I'll say there's a button there. So
We're in beverage distribution in something like a dozen states, Midwest, Southeast. So basically a stripe across America, north to south. And we ship to most other states. So, but that's secondary. That's not why we're here. We're here to discuss breaking federal policy news and, kind of also what's going on in Ohio is a reflection of that. Like Ohio's just passed a strange, the Ohio House, I should say, has passed a strange compromise bill that outlaws all gummy sales, all edible sales in the state, but legalizes beverage sales up to 10 milligrams per beverage in C-stores and grocery and on premise across Ohio, which is great. That's great progress. But the fact that we had to outlaw gummies to get that done seems bizarre and arbitrary. And so, we'll see what comes through the Senate to the governor's desk and what gets signed. But modest but weird progress in Ohio if what passed out of the Ohio House stands. And I have, I kind of read that the governor of Ohio was frustrated by what's going on at the federal level, which caused him to issue that executive order attempting to ban products, which motivated the Ohio House to pass that bill. The governor of Ohio would not have done that if he thought that Mitch McConnell and Andy Harris were going to be successful at the federal level banning hemp products. He wouldn't have had the need to. And as long as, as the government shutdown drags on, this conversation about what to do with hemp is happening in the background with legislative leaders, with appropriators, and the White House may or may not be getting involved, depending on who you hear from. And this is a $30 billion industry whose fate is being decided behind closed doors right now. And for folks who believe that THC should remain legal and we need to move forward to make THC more legal, not less legal, then what's going on right now at the federal level is very, very important, and everyone should get engaged.
And how do they get engaged? I'll have a link in the show notes for at least one resource, the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. I believe this is something you've shared.
So this U.S. Hemp Roundtable link at hempsupporter.com, is very simple and convenient and useful. Like many advocacy organizations have this kind of software, but it's where you can go in and plug in your mailing address and send a, for this, you're showing something from at state level campaigns that we have as well. But you can enter your mailing address and then send a customizable message, and it will send directly to your relevant legislators, whether you know who those are or not. Over the summer, we sent something like 50,000 emails into Congress, and Congress hears those, especially when they're coming from constituents, especially on the House side. It's like, it's easy to become cynical and jaded that government doesn't work anymore. But when a member of Congress starts getting hundreds of emails on a topic and they realize they're all constituents, that does move the needle. And that's what this is about. And so we're on a campaign with U.S. Hemp Roundtable and Cornbread Hemp to get 100,000 emails into Congress during the shutdown to make voices heard. And, there's a lot of similarities and differences between the hemp industry and the greater cannabis industry. These the drinks have become sort of the new, frontier in those conversations. But for folks who are, who live in regulated cannabis states, who think that the hemp industry is competitive and that they don't want hemp to succeed, they should reflect on the fact that hemp is legalized, a little bit of THC, and we're not going to deschedule all of cannabis if hemp gets rescheduled. In order to deschedule all cannabis, we have to keep hemp descheduled. And so that's what this fight is about right now, is keeping hemp descheduled.
Exactly. Yeah. I always say, we recently, I say recently, of course, it's been a long time since the rescheduling process started. But, one of the number one things and the biggest amount of comments that the government received, it was historical, was that everybody said deschedule cannabis. And what I've just been wondering is why we aren't seeing more unity against the criminalization of cannabis products. Like, it seems like I'm not aware of anybody that disagrees that cannabis products should mandate testing, labeling, and an age gate. Like, I'm not aware of any group out there that's saying, no, these three sensible regulations should not happen. It seems like the real disagreement, and you sort of alluded to it, comes from the idea of allowing an open licensing structure, which seems sort of inherent with hemp, as opposed to limited licensing, which you see in states like Illinois, even Florida, Ohio, I believe.
When you introduce interstate commerce into the equation, the number of licenses in a state doesn't even matter.
Right.
Like, Illinois is a wonderful place, but should Illinois be growing its own cannabis when California and Oregon and Kentucky can grow superior cannabis for cheaper prices per pound? If an Illinois cannabis consumer could get California grown cannabis that's higher quality and lower price than what you can grow indoors in suburban Chicago, would that Illinois cannabis consumer benefit from that interstate commerce? And the answer is unequivocally yes. And so the number of licenses per state doesn't even fucking matter. We're talking about interstate commerce. And so some people, people who are invested in the MSO business structure are threatened by interstate commerce because the MSO business structure demands all cannabis consumed in New Jersey be grown in New Jersey. But no, like, it's the Garden State, but we shouldn't be growing commercial cannabis there. We should be growing commercial cannabis in California, Oregon, and Kentucky, and places where it's naturally well suited to grow cannabis at scale, sustainably and cheaply and at high quality. And so that's what this is about. Descheduling introduces interstate commerce to the cannabis industry, which is what it needs to survive.
And it also removes 280E. It allows them to bank, accept credit cards. And this brings me back to the original question. Why are we not seeing unity around this? Like this, they complain all day long about all of these different things. And they in fact say that this is what makes hemp unfair. But one thing that I've struggled to wrap my head around is, if you're saying hemp is unfair, what is stopping you from getting in hemp? And the answer is nothing. So it feels like there's nothing more fair than hemp.
That's a great way to put it. And some of these, MSOs, to their credit, have adapted and moved into the hemp space. You got Curaleaf and I think Tilray down in Florida.
GTI, True Leave.
So the ones that are doing it, like that's the smart play, because as you point out, like, it's right there for them.
Right. What I think is interesting, though, is when they come on, let's call it your side of the fence, Jim. When a big company like that comes on your side of the fence, you say, welcome, bring it. Let's see what products you have, and let's see if you can beat us out on that. But it seems like when people are asking to come on the other side of the fence, albeit without the over regulations, that's one of the problems with the marijuana industry, I will say in air quotes, is not so much that, let's set aside the fact that it's literally impossible to get in some of these markets because of the limited licensing. But then past that, it's overregulated. We're treating cannabis like it's nuclear material. And I don't understand why anybody is supportive of that, other than profit margins, it seems.
Well, I mean, people have become used to the cage that they've been put in. They've been put in that cage because they've been granted the permission by the state to have a legal business that's still a crime under federal law. And so the state is over-regulating the nature of it because of its Schedule I status. There's also the whole, you can't bank. And so therefore, the cash heavy nature of the business, and therefore the inherent security risks associated with a cash heavy business, should we have to show our ID to enter a dispensary? That seems absurd. And also, if it's a cash heavy business, maybe it doesn't hurt that there's security.
Yeah. So we'll start to wrap up this segment here. I did want to show you, I asked a similar question to the Dales report. I said, do you agree that the hemp debate isn't about testing synthetics or age gates or mandates on testing, but about open licensing? I said, it seems like everyone agrees on sensible regulations, but disagree on open versus limited licensing. And this is the response that I got. Let's take a moment to watch this.
Well, what Cole said about licensing, I think, is a very slippery slope, because I don't think that the limited license structures that you're seeing in states should last. I think the wall should be brought down, and there should be a more fair way to enter the cannabis industry on a national scale. But at the same time, like, people need to realize, like, liquor licenses are capped. Like, liquor licenses are technically limited licenses. There's just an abundance of them, and they trade more freely. The structure in Florida is crazy when you look at it, that you have to be super vertically integrated. You need $100 million to come in here. And there were only 22 licenses from the original cohort. And then you look at Massachusetts, that's a heavily insulated, crony capitalist market. Licensing needs to be somewhere between the limited licensing that we're seeing and what Oklahoma did. Because when you do it like what Oklahoma did, $2,750 gets you a license. You've got people brokering them for $65,000 and selling them to people. And every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the state of Oklahoma has a license. That kind of defeats the purpose of the licensing altogether. But it also doesn't need to go to an extreme as to what we have now, which is super insulating the first movers from any sort of competition that are coming into the markets. And that's what Trulieve and GTI and a lot of the other companies are lobbying against. They don't want more participants coming into their markets where they're already seeing price compression and market share go down on a quarter by quarter basis.
So, you know, and this is a common response, which seems to cite concerns about a race to the bottom and people going out of business because licenses are too plentiful. And this doesn't really seem to be a debate in the hospitality industry, where it's widely accepted that 80% of restaurants go out of business in the first 5 years. What makes cannabis different?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, thanks for showing that clip. I do think that the Dales report is doing the best that they can with the audience that they've got. I think the MSO investor audience is problematic, and the Dales report and those guys got their hands full. But I do like some of the people they bring on. Mark Cajotes, that was the interviewee in that segment. It seems like a really smart guy who gets it, and it's good to see him in these conversations as well. But I think Anthony has he's getting something right and he's getting something wrong in his answer. He's right to compare it to liquor licenses, and that liquor licenses are capped. In Kentucky, for instance, there's a quota package liquor license, and that's a quota by county, which means it's difficult to get liquor licenses in rural counties, but easy and abundant to get them in metropolitan areas because of the quotas based on population. And so in that sense, it's a good way to conceive of what an open market licensing structure could look like if you're basing it off of a liquor license model. On the other hand, what he's getting wrong is interstate commerce changes everything about the cannabis industry. And these liquor licenses that he's talking about are for retail. They're not going to be for vertically integrated seed to sale organizations, operations in each state. Those retail operations are going to be selling California cannabis across dispensaries across America, because, to follow the alcohol model, some states are going to excel in production and other states are going to excel in distribution. If you look at the American landscape for liquor production now, you have a few states that do liquor production. You've got spirits production in Kentucky and Tennessee. You've got wine production in states like California and Oregon, and you've got corporate beer production in states like Wisconsin, Missouri, Colorado. And so, in the other states, there's not really concentrated manufacturing interests for those products, and those products are shipped across the country and around the world. And that model is where cannabis production goes once interstate commerce enters the picture in a descheduled world. And so that's, I think, what these guys aren't getting quite yet, is the implications, the full deep implications of what interstate commerce means to the industry.
Gotcha. Yeah. And, people use Oklahoma as an example. Oregon is also used as an example. Their former regulator, Steve Marks, has come on the show, and he's actually asked about this subject in the past. I want to play a very short clip of him being asked. So in case people don't know, it was widely reported that Oregon issued too much licenses and that there was too much weed in the state. And he was asked about this exact topic we're discussing. Here was his response. And I think I'd be interested to get your thoughts on this, Jim, before we start to close out.
Do you look back at it and think maybe we should have put some caps on production or on the licenses?
You know, my job's not to second guess that. I'm just the administrator. But if you're asking me, I don't think so. Everyone just wanted to be the first in, to have their stake in it, and they were willing to take the risk to be a part of that market. So I don't think that's necessarily bad. And in a control market, they'd be left out. They'd never get that chance.
Of course, there's one group of people who would never complain about weed market competition. People who like cheap weed.
So, your thoughts on, this is from, a state that many regulators, including from my home state, my cannabis regulators, our cannabis regulators, I should say, point to Oregon as a failure, point to Michigan as a failure because they issued too many licenses, prices got too low.
Because the prices got too low because the product was legally restrained inside the boundaries of the state.
Within the state.
Once they have access to interstate commerce, then all of those licensees in Oregon can receive the promise of growing cannabis in a great place to grow cannabis because they can ship that product legally and not have it be called diversion, which is what's happening now. They can legally ship that product across state lines to states that do not grow cannabis as well as Oregon, and fulfill the promise of a strong cannabis cultivation industry in Oregon. Like, some states are better suited for growing cannabis at scale than others, and Oregon is one of those states. And so I agree, with that regulator. Like, it's better to have overproduced and experienced failure than to have limited it to only corporate entities who could afford to weigh in at a much higher price tag per license.
Right.
If you both of these models are failures of models because they restrict commerce from interstate commerce, and only descheduled cannabis has access to the interstate commerce of the promise of American enterprise. And so therefore only descheduled cannabis is the only solution that we're looking for. Like, rescheduling is only suitable because it's a stepping stone to descheduling, if that's the way this goes.
Yeah. And I think one of the best parts of his response was like, you'd rather give somebody the chance and have them, have the opportunity to fail and know what they're getting into. I think that's most importantly. They knew what they were getting into, rather than lock them out of the system entirely. So.
Right. People, we understand, getting involved in business in the cannabis and hemp industry, you have to have a high capacity for risk and dynamics. Like, the whole point is like you're pricing in the success on the other side of regulatory clarity. Like, we all know what the risks are, and we're facing seemingly existential risks currently in the present day, and those are no fun. We're weathering them and navigating them and doing our best to get a good result in them. And we all understand, the point of doing this is doing it well is understanding the risk.
Right. Well, let's move on to some questions. And before I do that, I wanted to point out, I think some people should expect a race to the bottom. I think prices have been propped up for so long due to prohibition, and these limited license states are sort of limited forms of prohibition that are sort of serving to continue to prop these prices up. I think, like you say, when we get interstate commerce, inevitably the price of cannabis is going to fall to its natural value. Now, I will say there's always room for a craft product. Just like still today, you can find a really good bourbon or whiskey. Absolutely. You can find great expensive bourbons and whiskeys. You can also find really cheap ones. And I think that spectrum will exist in cannabis as well. I just wanted to say that because, everybody talks about the race to the bottom. It's like, hold on for a second, folks. We are selling a plant. Yes, there are heirloom tomatoes that go for a lot, but for the most part, tomatoes are pretty cheap. You know what I'm saying?
Those cheap tomatoes are trash, and the heirloom tomatoes,
they are.
Farmers market tomatoes are really like in season. Get a tomato while they're in season, and then I love a good tomato. You just this is another controversial subject, I think.
Okay, we'll move on. We'll move on from that. But okay, so we do have some questions from listeners, but really quick, I had asked you a question last time. I want to give you the chance to respond to this if you'd like to on air.
Shit.
Do you have any? What do you think about people like the Dank Informer, personalities? I should say. Who knows who the Dank Informer is? Though he's been on the show in the past, I should say.
Basic media literacy is that you should not trust anonymous accounts. We don't know a lot of, we don't know its motivations. We don't know, its funding sources. We don't know a lot about it. And so if we're taking what this person, entity, thing is saying as gospel, we're being manipulated by whoever he's protecting by remaining anonymous. And is characteristic of this broader MSO investor cohort on X that is only interested in the MSO business model, which is against descheduling and is terrified and threatened by interstate commerce.
Yeah.
Right? Like their entire motivation is to reschedule, not deschedule, to preserve the business model of the MSO. And for anyone who's interested in descheduling entirely, then the Dank Informer and his cohort of anonymous MSO investors on X are just noise that should be talked over and ignored.
All right. Yeah, I pretty well agree. And I think that all of the things that person points out are addressed by the 3-pillar approach. And that's what I've never understood about they have, in my opinion, a straw man argument against the continued descheduling of cannabis.
Because they're threatened by the interstate commerce nature of hemp, because the interstate commerce nature of hemp destroys the MSO business model and their investments in the MSO system.
And I will say they have said that, quote unquote, they said, I went to a smoke shop, I saw these products for sale, and I viewed them as a direct challenge to my investment thesis. That's pretty much a direct quote from the Dank Informer. So, okay.
Probably not a cannabis user, him or herself.
No, they admitted on my show that they purchase hemp products because they lived in Georgia, which didn't have a legal marijuana program, which I found interesting, to say the least.
It's not worth our time.
Yeah, not worth our time. So let's move on. Okay, got a question in. Somebody is saying, why are the hemp people aligning with alcohol? Is that even a thing? Is that even a thing that's happening?
Alcohol people are aligning with us. And it's because the popularity of beverages and alcohol is split on this issue. Alcohol distributors are supportive of hemp beverage legality and have weighed in heavily in our support. And when we're, when you're at battle, you'll take any ally that you can get. And so alcohol distributors are not natural allies for us. And still at the state level, we have our differences. For instance, alcohol distributors do not enjoy us having the right to ship direct to consumer.
Right.
But at a federal level, alcohol distributors and beer distributors are weighing in to support us, and we welcome their support. And we need to broaden the tent and get as many people on our side as possible. And so this is welcome news, especially since we have spirit manufacturers rooting against us, trying to destroy us by claiming to wanting to close a loophole, even though we're operating under the plain language of the law. So Discus is the Distilled Spirits Council. They are against us, where the WSWA, the Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America, the distributors, they're with us. So we have split the alcohol lobby, and we're grateful for the support from the WSWA.
Gotcha. Just 3 other questions. One of them is going to be super quick. Jim Higdon asks, what's his favorite color? What is your favorite color, Jim? Sorry.
My wife teases me, like almost everything I own is blue. Like this jacket I'm wearing is a rare exception.
Gotcha. In case people didn't know, I made a post. You got any questions for Jim Higdon? And that's what I'm asking now. Jamie Campbell, big fan of the show, asks, Will he still do okay with just a beverage carve out, or does he need edibles to survive as well?
I guess he's talking relative to Ohio.
Yeah.
We will. It's frustrating. It's actually a good question. The Ohio Compromise is very strange. We have a lot of retailers that sell our full spectrum edibles like sleep gummies at outlets like Fresh Time. There's like 10 Fresh Times in Ohio, plus a number of other sort of smaller natural product retailers. And so we will lose that business in this compromise, but what we would gain in beverage seems to far exceed that. And so our company will do better on the beverage side, even though we're losing business on the edible side. But that's kind of secondary to the point that lots of responsible product manufacturers and responsible retailers who are making edibles for sale in Ohio are going to have a lot more exposure to this on the negative side than us. And, we're not so self-interested as to not be concerned with their well-being as well, with their consumers and their retailers that are selling legal products to adults. And so while the Ohio Compromise actually kind of suits our company, we're still very concerned with its impact writ large.
Gotcha. And one last question, and I hope you don't mind me asking, because I don't know if this person is asking in good faith or whatever, but Jamie also ask Jim to clarify the difference between a regular MSO like himself and a, quote, fuck stick MSO.
Yes. Well, he's really hung up on this. So these guys harass other people on X all the time and then get, what's the word? I'm trying to be delicate and appropriate here.
I would say obsessive. In my experience, but
after being harassed by these jerks for a period of time, I might have used bad words, and he's using this bad word that I've used in the past to try to make me feel sorry for him or something, but I don't.
Okay, well, fair enough. I would say the difference between you and the traditional MSO that most people are aware of is that you're welcoming of competition. You're not trying to silo yourself off, at least from what I can tell. And so,
we're all in this together. And the more just this question about the alcohol lobby, it is from a cannabis perspective, strange and concerning that alcohol interests would weigh in. There's always been this concern that alcohol would take over the cannabis industry or attempt to, and this could be seen as a part of that. But we're in this together. And when you have an ally like the distributors for wine and spirits and beers coming in to support us, you have to welcome allies in these fights. And for these MSO investor types on X, Jamie Campbell among them, they don't seem to understand how to build a coalition. They're only interested in tearing other people down.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's end it on this note. Folks, if you enjoy the ability to go to places like Target or have cannabis drinks delivered to your door, which I think advocates of the past, this is what they fought for. This is what we wanted. We wanted cannabis products to be treated like a descheduled commodity. And here we are. This is what we have. So let's fight for what we have. Let's fight to keep what we have, and let's fight to deschedule the entire plant. I'll have a link in the show notes so that you can go to the federal action page on the U.S. Hemp Roundtable and contact your representatives. Is that the call to action to close, Jim? Contact your U.S. senator and U.S. representative on this subject. Is that the call to action?
Absolutely, yes. We're trying to get 100,000 people to contact Congress before the shutdown ends, and this is your chance to do that. All it takes is a couple of clicks on the Hemp Supporter website. Cole, thank you for making that link available. That's what this is all about. If you are in favor of descheduled cannabis, it's time to contact your member of Congress now and let them know.
Yep. Once again, folks, we made it easy for you. Go to the link in the show notes. If you scroll down, the letter is literally filled out for you. You just have to fill out your name and send it on over. Do it, folks. Protect the status quo, which is the future of cannabis, I believe.
I'll also point out that email, even though it's already filled out for you, is also customizable. So if you want to put your own message in it, you're able to do that and still can have the bullet points that's in that template, fill it out for you, and then you can add to it.
Yeah. And my parting thought is, if you have the time, I would recommend that. Everybody loves a personalized message. So if you have the time, do that. If not, get that letter sent. And like I say, let's make sure that cannabis remains descheduled. Jim, once again, folks can find your products at cornbreadhemp.com. I appreciate you joining me today.
Cole, really appreciate you having me. See you next time.
Okay, I will try to get to some of your comments here in a moment, but we're going to keep the show moving and switch gears for a second. And it's because I got a caller that has some thoughts about something I've actually not reported on just yet, but Illinois News Joint has. First of all, Satisfied Mind, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Not bad. How you doing, man?
Not bad at all. You want to tell the people about what we're going to talk about briefly? I know you might be running here in a second. And maybe some of your thoughts, and I'll pull up that Illinois News Joint article so that people can read more.
Yeah, I just tried to find the actual document, and I did end up finding it to get the actual legal wording of it and stuff. But there's been a couple proposed amendments to the CRTA, and the one of them that I was really kind of wanting to chat about is they have some, I don't know how to describe it really, new amendments that they're trying to put in to regulate a CBD, CBG, THCV, or CBN as inputs for concentrates, and that they have to be grown through a USDA licensed facility. It has to be isolate. The input as whatever the isolate is coming in. There's a bunch of stipulations that are kind of posted, but I wonder if this is their way of trying to combat the hemp market and say, so now all of these hemp farmers can, as long as you're registered through the USDA, that they should be able to sell isolates to licensed cannabis producers and be able to sell that product in market. Then I'm just a little confused, I guess, of like where this is coming from other than that.
I was confused too, because this variance, a variance similar to this, has existed for a while, which some operators have taken advantage of, and I get the sense that it's changed maybe a bit over the years. But it's this idea, like you say, that you can use, and I'm trying to pull it up right now, the old one. I don't know what this. I was confused on these amendments too, because from what I understand right now, you can have CBN. Maybe the amendment is specifically that USDA licensed, like the source has to be licensed from the USDA or something. Or
well, one section it said something about you having to come from an Illinois facility, but then later on it says the USDA. So I was like, well, does that just mean that all Illinois facilities are then going to be licensed through USDA as well? You know, as hemp farmers?
Right.
Where I'm at is on page 32 is the section that I was.
Interesting.
And it's that blue section, like kind of at the bottom there is where it starts, and it goes all the way down like 3-4 pages.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm not aware of, I mean, okay. So maybe this might be the distinction. I hope that we've got some subject matter experts tuning in right now, because I've seen some people. Yeah. Like I know Kay and MJ, she says that's always been an option for hemp farmers, but it really isn't done. And that's actually what I was about to ask, maybe what this is. So what I was going to pull up, and it's somewhere on my website, it's a like a memorandum of variance. And I wonder what they're trying to do is codify this, because they have to reissue it every year. And they have.
That makes sense.
And so I think they're just trying to codify it. That's I've been confused, but the light bulb just went off. I'm wondering if that's what's going on, because I've been like when this came up, I was like, are they just trying to clarify something, or are they narrowing things down?
Yeah, I was kind of the same thing. Like reading through it, I was just seeing what was there and was kind of just more confused after reading it, because it kind of felt like, isn't this kind of already happening? Like I'm just a little lost about it, but
Yeah, and I'll try to pull up what we're talking about. Like I said, I know I've posted it on my website a few times, but any other thought? Like, I don't mean to shift away from this, but I can't remember what it is. I do plan to do some reporting on this. I've got notes. I just haven't really had a chance to sort of refine my thoughts. But and see, this is something that I'm going to do off the top of my head. But one thing I recall being said in that meeting was like a price. They did a price comparison, and we were talking about math earlier. So if my people that are good at math are still watching right now, they did, so you've got the 21 cultivation centers that are 210,000 square feet of flowering canopy. And if you divide that by the $100,000, they came up with like a cost per square foot of flowering canopy. And then they compared that to the craft cost. And it was like, I think they said 50% higher or something. And so if people are watching that can do the math, I think the cost for a craft license is $40,000 annually, setting aside all the other fees that you probably have to pay. Just the license itself is 40,000 annually. At max, you can have 14,000. I don't think a lot of them do though. But still figure that into your cost. And I believe the guy was saying it's like 50% higher cost
for craft or for the large scale,
which I found interesting. For craft, it was more expensive. So thank you for asking me to clarify that, because that's the important point. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So people do the math. I mean, I just threw those figures out there.
So does that mean that the craft grow would have to put out twice the amount that they, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
but you can't, because you only have so much canopy space.
Right. Yeah, and I feel bad for even bringing it up right now, because I don't have the numbers that he shared exactly. But did you attend the meeting? Like, did you? No. Okay.
No,
gotcha.
I did not.
Gotcha. It was interesting. A few licensees spoke. One of the things they spoke about was the concept of like holding centers in the state of Illinois. Do you know what I mean? Like
the transfer sites. Yeah.
Since you're in the industry, I can explain it, but I'm just curious, could you explain it for like my listeners that don't understand maybe what we're talking about and what people are asking for?
Yeah, I haven't read up on that too much.
Sure.
My interpretation is that it would basically be like a warehouse, a building that you pull your vehicle into, and you can transfer your product from one car to another. Drivers you can switch.
And I guess what I was going to explain for people, the reason that people need or asking for this is because the state of Illinois is large. And so if you have, a cultivation center in the southernmost tip of Illinois, and you're trying to deliver your product up to the northernmost tip, and let's say you have a discrepancy or some little speed bump along the way, oops, a flat tire, I don't know. You have to do these deliveries in one day. You have to be back home in one day, I believe, is the requirement. And so it puts some of these operators in a tough position where they're like, they have to be very strategic about those long hauls, I guess, is what I've heard.
Yeah. I mean, 4 or 5 hours, one way, that's not even counting your transfer time, at the dispensary. And hopefully they've got someone there and ready right at your scheduled time when you get there. Because if there's a line of people or something, then you're waiting an extra 30 minutes, hour or something like that. And now you're not getting back home until, 12 hours later, 13 hours later.
Yeah.
But yeah, the transport side of it is interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of regulations. I know they just went from, I think, down to one driver. Was that?
I can't remember, but
if that was a newer one. Yeah, going from 2 drivers down to 1 or something.
I feel like I remember some talk about that, but I don't know what has materialized.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if that was a proposed
Yeah.
rule or if people were trying to get that or what.
Yeah. I see it looks like you got a grow tent behind you. You got anything going? Got anything cool going?
No, that's
it's empty.
Yeah, it's my breeding tent, my pollen tent. So I did a reversal on Oreos and yeah, did some pollination, and I've got the male reversal in there still. I just need to get rid of it, clean out the whole tent. So
very cool. Very cool.
Which that was another thing that I was kind of wanting to discuss at some point. Genetic Memory Farms and I were chatting yesterday in your comment section, and we discussed having like a grow club kind of thing in Illinois. And I think that'd be really neat, a good resource for new growers, people who are interested in growing, questions, about growing, even just curious about the process and stuff. I know a lot of these cultivators are kind of shy about sharing, what they're growing and that kind of stuff for whatever reason. But I think there's a lot of interest in it. Like you said, we're seeing Target and Circle K.
Yeah.
Carrying drinks. So it's like, it's reaching new places. You're already seeing the drinks and bennies and stuff like that. So it's the easiest place for people to get into cannabis, I think. Yeah.
And to your point, I mean, you see the seeds and the grow equipment. Now there's a lot of grow shops around Illinois. Like I think that I don't remember seeing, but I also wasn't always looking for grow shops in my younger days, but I don't remember seeing as many grow shops as I do these days.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. I feel like cannabis is one of a weird plant because it has so much drug connotation with it that people don't, I guess, see the beauty in the plant. And as a patient, a grower, I think that it's fascinating that you can get this one plant that has fruit smells, that has flower smells, that has rubber smells, that has poop smells, skunk smells. Like it's the same plant. And it's kind of a unique looking flowering plant. If you see it, as a grower, it stands out once you see it. But for other people, it kind of looks weird. It's not your typical flower. But can you imagine just being able to walk down the street and being able to smell all these different cultivars that people are growing? Because everyone has their own preferences.
Right.
It'd be so awesome.
Yeah, I dream of a day where we've got like a farmer's market where you're not like low key worried. Like we've had people on the show that do them, and we've heard a whole lot of, great successes and horrible evenings, and so I just wish we were in a place where that wasn't the case. And like you say, we could just like any other produce, like my last guest said, like you can go to the big store and get some tomatoes that are they're just tomatoes, but you can get some heirloom tomatoes and oh my gosh, like it's an experience.
Yeah, for sure.
So I like what Genetic Memory Farms said. I really wish we need to, I don't know if we need to make like a Discord or something, just get us together, grow the group, people prefer different platforms, but we just need to get together. And I think if we not only engage in an activity like growing, like that's a healthy thing, but then I think this like second sentence is really important. It can be a growers lobby. Imagine if we could put out a call to action to growers and be like we get some sort of legislator to support the idea of expanding home grow to all adults, right? Increasing plant count for medical patients and adults preferably. But we'll take what we can get. And then we're able to sort of put this call to action out with our home growers. Be like, yo, show that this, like, because I will say when I've come to the Capitol just for like things like hemp, I've just come because like I've been like, hey, I like getting these drinks. Like that's how I come. I like these drinks getting sent to me in the mail. Please don't take this away from me. And they're surprised that I took the time to come down to Springfield, and I think it made a markable difference. And so I think if we had a group of people come down to Springfield and talk about how like beneficial the task is of home growing, not only just for the consumption of the plant, but literally the process itself is therapeutic in
Yeah,
many ways.
for sure. And it's not easy. It can be. It's easy to grow weed. It's a lot of work to grow good weed, but it's possible. Everyone can do it. It just takes a little bit of work, takes time to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said. Well, let's develop this thought some more, and we can put out the call to action on this show and on, wherever, I've got different places I can pump the message. So
Yeah, it'd be awesome. I'd love to. I mean, even just being able to share genetics.
right. And that seems like it'd be almost the easiest one since like hemp and all, but
The biggest problem is back to the regulation is
right.
A patient can't gift my own home grow to another patient. Like that is illegal, which is insane because I can go to the store and buy a product and gift that product, no problem.
Yep.
So there's definitely things that we need to work on, and it's hard when the regulators don't want to take up any cannabis business. So,
yep, exactly. Well said. Well, like I say, I'm hoping that if we can get a little group together and show up, that we can make a difference. Because I don't think, you think about these legislators, and this is a compliment to them. I'm sure they get tired of just dealing with lobbyists all the time. That's another thought that's another observation I came away with. And I even talked about it with a representative I had on my show. I was like, I remember when I walked in your office and you just looked up at me and you're like, oh, you're just a person. Like you're not some guy representing some corporate conglomerate. Like, welcome, sit down. You could just see like, it's nice to just talk to a person.
It's not a sales pitch. It's you're talking as a person. Yeah.
It's just so much more effective. Yeah. So, like I say,
it's scary. Like for me, I've not done that, and gone to talk to someone important, like that for changes and stuff. But it's to the point where I've sat and watched long enough and have been talking with you and, the background a little bit and saying like, why isn't this happening? Why isn't that happening? And well, it's because people aren't bringing it up and talking about it. So if you want something to change, if you want something done, sometimes you got to do it yourself. So yeah, it's time to, and for patients, it's like we've been only allowed 5 plants. And as a patient, when you're trying to find something that works for you, that hits your body the right way to heal the pain, the thing that you're dealing with, it takes time. It takes a lot of plants to find that perfect one. And that's something that's hard to explain to a non-cannabis person, but
yeah, it is.
I love that we have the ability to still. So I'm not complaining by any means, but we have work to do.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. A lot of work to do. Well, any other thoughts just on home grow or even those IDOA regs that we were talking about? I did have one really quick and easy question for you, but I wanted to give you the space still.
No, the Act Labs numbers inflation thing is wild, but like I think that there needs to be a little bit more checking of those numbers. I know that the state is building their lab and getting it operational soon-ish, whenever that may be. Right. But it will be interesting to see if they even release that information. They don't release recall information. They don't release, some information about the market. So why would they release that?
What I will say, and this is yet to be seen, but it was included in this article, which I'll flash up on the screen here in a little bit, because I feel like there's some interesting things that are coming with Illinois cannabis policy. And you mentioned the lab, but also the idea that COAs will be on the label in the future. But then also this idea that there's going to be some sort of portal where people can go and see all of the products that are like registered in metric. And I don't know where that's at. It's in this article that I'm displaying on screen right now. But my point is like, I can't help but wonder if these things we're talking about, like if we'll see much more of it, because if you're, scanning data and you're just like, you could filter it and be like, I want to see like 30 and up. Let's find ridiculous results. I just feel like it's going to like kind of shake things up a little bit where it'll be easier maybe for auditors, but I'm speaking way before I even know what this portal looks like and what information it'll impart,
But what is even baseline? for THC numbers. Like, what is
true
an actual average?
And this is I want to throw it back to you. This is the big question I was going to ask this person that was going to come on tomorrow that we're going to have to reschedule. You know, cannabis testing is just barely a decade old. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
And the police are arresting us for intoxication and impairment and stuff. And what's that number? You know, like,
yeah. Yeah. So.
There's just a lot. There's a lot to talk about. There's, like you said, there's a lot to do, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. Like, where do you start? Like, what's the biggest fire? Like,
right. And then you have it competing against all the other like things that are going on, like transit, the budget, energy, you know,
the country.
Yes. That's one thing I tried to make sure to mention earlier. It's not even the topics that are like homegrown, let's say, just to use a cannabis pun. But you know, we're having, let's just call it outside influence coming in. And you know, I couldn't help but wonder before this veto session, like all we were talking about was national stuff. It's like, I don't even know what's going to happen in veto session. And a lot of the people I was watching didn't know either. But here we are. And like I say, that's next week. So it'll be interesting to see if anything goes through, but,
edge of my seat.
Yeah. So my question for you was, it's easy to join the show, right? If you just go to colememo.com/live, like you were able to just plug in the name you wanted. It's super easy.
Yeah. 2 seconds, really. It took me longer because I have a camera set up, kind of different kind of thing. So, but yeah, I mean, it's the easiest thing. And yeah, you can choose not to have your camera running. You can pick whatever name, obviously. So,
yep. Yeah. So if you want to call in and troll me, you technically can do that. I don't know how long I'll let it last, but you technically can do that.
I like it because you can respond back and forth and have a conversation a lot easier this way, instead of trying to type in a comment, wait for you to see it and then address it. And by that point, I forgot the thing that I was trying to talk about or something, you know? So yeah, it's a nice, I like also that you do it and take the calls and have the conversations, even if it's someone that's going to disagree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the fun ones.
Yeah. Conversations, and it's real. So
yeah. Well, dude, I
appreciate
you coming on. You got you going to have a good Friday night? Obviously you don't have to get into the details, but you're going to have a good Friday night.
Yeah. I'm getting stoned, smoking some home grow, and I got a
what did you say what you're smoking on?
It's some GMO fuel from a Southern Illinois breeder, Red Scare Seed Company. Great dude, great genetics. Check them out if you don't know, on Instagram.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. What are you smoking on?
Honestly, you know, it's crazy. I don't even know. I went to go and get weed earlier, and I had like a little bit in a tin. I was like, fuck. I haven't been home growing lately, so I've been relying on friends. And so I was like, oh fuck. And I don't know why. I had this weird feeling. I went and looked in this box that I had all my old jars in, where, you know, we get done with harvest, you got to fill up a bunch of jars for burping and stuff. And in one jar, dude, I have like a fucking 7. I was like, hell yeah, past coal that forgot about this weed. So yeah, I don't even know, but it's some old home grow that I grew. That's just fine, you know.
I thought you were just going to say that you had so much weed that people were sending you or something. That
no, I wish that was a problem I had.
Yeah.
But maybe one of these days, who knows? Maybe if we can get some, this is the thing, that's the future I hope for with pushing for like home grow and all that stuff, where it's like, yeah, like cannabis should just be plentiful. Like it should be like coffee. Like I got like a fucking pound of coffee, like whatever.
You know? Yeah. I could, I mean, I could go on for hours talking about it and how it's so unfair and this and that, yeah, here we are. I'm glad that we can at least do this, though, that we can sit online and smoke and, you know, talk about it all. So
that I agree on. That's what I'll always say is, like, while I complain sometimes about the progress that I feel we haven't made, I would not be doing this right now if it weren't for the progress we have made.
And it's easy to look at Michigan or other states and say, man, look how good they have it. Right. Yeah. And the states that don't have any kind of program, Indiana, they're looking over here going, man, it must be nice. So, yeah, be grateful, people.
Be grateful. Well, thank you again.
Yeah.
And yeah.
See you,
You
dude.
take care. Yep. All right. Well, that was fun. I can try to get back to the comments. We just did that hemp section. I've got one more segment to do and a few links. It's just going to kind of be an open show afterwards. I'll start to close it down. People were asking on our last segment about Genetic Memory Farms asked, does he think we're concerned about pressuring federal regulators about hemp? And people are missing SNAP and WIC. We've got real issues to solve. Hemp is kind of not priority compared to what ICE is doing. I totally get that. I totally get that, and that's why I just tried to share how honestly like an easy way that you can contact your reps about this. The message was all like filled out and stuff. The form like will find your rep depending on where you are. So like since you're from Illinois, it'll show you your Illinois reps. But if anybody's watching from out of state, like I don't know if this Hawaii, if you're maybe you've been on the show in the past. I think are you the same person from Hawaii? I don't know. Sometimes I get you Hawaiians mixed up. But some people are watching from out of state. So I just wanted to give an easy way because I know a lot of other things are going on right now. But personally, like as a consumer, the reason I'm so passionate about this is, everybody gets caught up in the hemp versus marijuana and the taxes versus the not or your state tax, all that stuff. I just am like, I take myself back to when I first started smoking and it was really scary. And if I had lived in a world where you could go to the gas station and buy a cannabis beverage like I can now, like I did earlier this week, like that, I would have been really happy with that state of affairs. That's not what that's not the reality I grew up in. And so even in this reality now, I appreciate your comment, K and MJ squared. Even in this current reality, like I'm appreciative of the idea that if I need to go get a vape pen or some sort of product for myself or somebody else, that there are like locations that have like regularly posted hours. Like, sometimes dealing with people was not the most convenient things. It just depended on the guy. There were some people that were like, they had menus, they were professionals. Some people were not though, that I bought weed from back in the day. And so I don't know. This is just like a cool thing that I feel we've achieved. You realize that this, when especially since a lot of you guys are talking from the perspective of home grow, the farm bill, which is what legalized hemp, is the reason that seeds are completely legal now. Before we had to call them novelties, right? We had to like hide them in fucking weird packaging, shipped from, God, I can't think of where the websites I used to use. It's been a while. But do you get where I'm coming from? These are the things where it's like I get that there are parts of what has come from hemp that make people concerned. But I always say let's take the best and leave the rest. And I actually have an article about that at thecolememo.com. I can throw that in the show notes or throw it in the comments for folks. It's what I think is the answer to this whole conversation. I just came up with like a 2 to 3 page paper, and I think it's the answer. It's on thecolememo.com, the future of cannabis and hemp policy, taking the best and leaving the rest. And anyways, we don't have to go too far into that because we got to keep the show rolling. Let's keep it rolling. The next case has to do with cannabis users rather, and their ability to own firearms.
high court taking up a case challenging the federal ban on drug users owning firearms, and that includes people who use marijuana, which of course is illegal under federal law.
Tonight,
Up next, the United States Supreme Court has agreed to take up a case that could directly affect cannabis users' ability to legally own firearms. And I know that I'm not going to really get deep into like just the subject of firearm ownership, because I don't get the sense that many of you are necessarily like passionate about that subject. I am bringing it up because I think it's interesting. You know, a lot of people say that Trump is, going to reschedule cannabis, and there's this like hashtag Trump for cannabis, and um, it's almost painting him as like a pro cannabis president, which would be awesome. I just wonder if that's true, and this further makes me question that. So this case centers on a Texas man charged with a felony after admitting to being a regular marijuana user while possessing a gun. I believe I did hear a radio report or read somewhere that cocaine was involved, but maybe that got dropped from the case. But Cole says he's out. Bye. Thanks for tuning in. So this could be a landmark decision, one that tests how far the court's expanded interpretation of the Second Amendment's right. Sorry, I can't speak. The interpretation of Second Amendment rights and whether or not it extends to people who use federally illegal substances, which technically includes parts of the cannabis plant. Once again, if you're tuning in right now, I see we've got 57 people tuned in. You're tuned into the Cole Memo. If you want to keep up with everything in Illinois and beyond, go to colememo.com, which is where you can find all of my content in one place. Let's watch a breakdown of this, and we'll look at a reaction, and then we can just sort of open up the show before I close the show. If we, by the way, you can call in at colememo.com/live. We are going to watch this report, and like I said, I will share reactions afterwards. It'll be a pretty brief segment, this one. Whoops.
In the gun control debate, the Supreme Court will be taking up a gun rights case.
And this comes after a request from the Trump administration asking the high court to limit the right of drug users. Our So Young Kim joining us in studio now. And So Young, what makes this especially interesting is that this is a departure for the administration that typically favors Second Amendment rights.
In this case, the Trump administration is actually defending a federal gun ban for drug users.
The U.S. Supreme Court will be taking up whether people who smoke marijuana regularly can legally own guns. Here's where this case stems from. A Texas man was charged with a felony for allegedly violating the federal guns and drugs law after the FBI found a gun in his house and he acknowledged being a regular marijuana user. An appeals court struck down the ban, interpreting he wasn't found with a gun while actively using. That ruling pointed to a 2022 landmark finding. That decision had also found any restrictions must have strong examples in the nation's history, and a blanket ban wasn't supported. Now, the Trump administration is asking the Supreme Court to review the case and apply a gun ban in this case. The Justice Department argues the federal law is valid when used against regular drug users because they pose a serious public safety risk.
That is what makes me think, unless I heard that wrong, that makes me think that the Trump administration doesn't believe that cannabis users should be able to own firearms. Or they say habitual drug users, but right now that includes cannabis. So yeah, that's kind of what stood out to me, and I will share a reaction from Tom Angel, who is a reporter at Marijuana Moment. Throw up his tweet in just a moment, and it's really the same sort of thought. But let's put that on screen. This is what they had to say. Trump's DOJ is specifically asking the Supreme Court to uphold the ban on cannabis consumers owning guns, saying they quote pose a clear danger of misusing a firearm. End quote. So he says, as such, I don't see how it's part of a secret plan to advance marijuana reform. And that's kind of a similar thought I have had. But, other people think differently. I will say that. I'll share this in another episode. I still have some links that I want to share, but I'll pull it up right now if people want to check it out. There are people that feel differently that think that if Trump's going to do it, he'll do it by way of the farm bill. And that was, I know that Hawaii loves this show, and I'm saying that jokingly because it's something they said earlier. That was on the Dales Report. It was featuring Shad. Well, Shad's always on the show. It was featuring Gretchen Gailey, who is the person in the middle there. And basically, they made the case that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen through Farm Bill. I don't know. I just don't see that coming. I just don't see any of that happening. It seems like the priorities are in different places, and we'll chat about that. I mean, for example, I saw this statement, which I remember on the campaign trail. He had said that we wanted death penalty for drug dealers. And, people tend to equate that to fentanyl, which fentanyl is a result of the drug war. So I worry about what comes of that. But setting that aside, I wonder how broad the definition of drug dealer is. Like, which drugs? Here's the clip I was referring to of one of his most recent statements. I believe this is the right clip. Let's put it up
them
here.
on the operations.
No, we
against
will
these.
go. I said.
You will go, and
we
it would
will
be
go.
difficult
We're
for them
gonna
to
go.
object.
I don't see any Lawson going. No reason not to. They'll always complain. Oh, we should have gone. So we're going to definitely. I'd like to just tell you. Let's go.
Okay, this isn't what he said, but I think it's about
What we're going to do, and
he's about to be asked.
except for the radical left lunatics.
And Mr.
Yeah, I think this is the question I was thinking of right here.
President, if you are declaring war against these cartels and Congress is likely to approve of that process, why not just ask for a declaration of war?
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. They're going to be like dead. Okay?
And briefed them.
So, I want to keep it moving. We're going to close out the show with just some general plugs. And then I'll send you guys into your weekend. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We've got about 60 people tuned in. If you haven't already, smash that like button. And I'll be right back. Okay, so I was recently on the Lost and Faded podcast, so wanted to give a plug
And
for
he
that.
starts-
I appreciate the invite. It sounds like we might be doing some more things. So if you haven't checked this out, I'll try to throw a link in the show notes. I don't know if I have yet. So if you're looking at the show notes right now, like live, the link may not be in there, but it's Lost and Faded. We'll put it on screen here and right now. Let's throw it up. This is a short promo. We talked about White Chicks. We talked about White Chicks, the movie, not the demographic, by the way.
And he starts off by saying, it may be summertime in the Hamptons, but it is snowing up in here. Tony, hand me my boots because I'm about to go skiing. Terry Crews, I think, just stole that movie.
Even that part we'll get to, the club scene, when he's just dancing.
Dude, that scene lives with me. I think about it once a month.
Yeah, the glow sticks and
whistles.
everything. Yeah,
The whistles
Peck's
going.
just fucking going in the wind, dude.
He was
Yeah,
killing
he's
us
like
all.
in a
And
rage.
even the song. What's the song called?
1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton.
There you go.
I think I read that song has sort of now, like, when people think of that song, it's
They
really been
associate it.
associated with Terry Crews doing his shimmy dance. And he starts off by saying, it may be summer.
There we go. Sorry about that. Thank you to the Lost and Faded podcast for having me on. The Cannabis Research Institute, which you may have recalled, I participated in something they did. I'll be going to a follow-up thing in the future, and I'll talk about my whole experience. But they released a new annual report. I'll throw that in the comments. It'll be in the show notes. It's their 2025 annual report, From Seed to Social Impact, by the Cannabis Research Institute. That's in Illinois. I recently put out a call to action, maybe that's not the right. I posted a question online on a few different profiles, and I said, hey, what are your favorite Illinois-based cannabis creators? And I got a list of some, and I wanted to share them. So shout out to the Elevated News podcast. They were mentioned by many people, and they're a great show. I've been on their show in the past. They've been on my show in the past. The Cannabis Man podcast, that podcast was mentioned. I actually met the host of the Cannabis Man in Chicago at a High Focus Media event. It was crazy, and I'm pretty sure, I don't want to speak on behalf of the Cannabis Man, but I'm pretty sure we were both enjoying cannabis that night. The Canna Vibe podcast, I've seen some of their content posted online. They were mentioned. They have like Illinois cannabis discussions. So check them out. They're a local podcast, a local creator. So check out the Canna Vibe podcast. I'll put these links in the show notes, or at least links to some of their social medias. I don't know, like they're like one-stop shop links, but I'll link you to what other people shared. Cannabis Critique, he was actually tuned in earlier. He's on YouTube, but you can also get him on social media. He reviews cannabis products in the state of Illinois. And he's done other things too. I've seen him review like other products from other places, if I recall correctly. Like he's had drinks and stuff like that, for example. The Stoney Show, shout out to the Stoney Show. They are a local Illinois cannabis show. I think maybe the host has been on this show in the past. I think Weed Man 420 podcast. They were at the debut of my mini documentary, which was really cool. They were rolling up joints for people. If you haven't seen my mini documentary, it's colememo.com/minidoc. You can watch it for free. Like I say, at colememo.com/minidoc. And we'll probably play a teaser of that to close the show so that you know what to expect. But anyways, I wanted to give a shout out to those people. Like I said before that, the Cannabis Research Institute annual report will be linked in the show notes. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, folks. I appreciate the conversation throughout. It was really cool. Thank you to Satisfied Mind for calling in. Shout out to Hawaii Sustainable Farms, Genetic Memory Farms. Hawaii Sustainable. He ended up saying this actually about the Gretchen topic that we were talking about earlier. By the way, that episode, if you wanted to check it out, it was posted on October 15th, 2025 on the Dales Report. It's called Trump Few Weeks, Cannabis Rescheduling Promises Revisited. If you want to check that out. Like I said, I plan to watch it on the show in the future, but we'll see. Shout out to Cole Cram, shout out to K and MJ Squared. If I didn't already say, shout out to Genetic Memory Farms, shout out to Good Vibe Vet. Thank you all for tuning in. Brandon Krieger, I appreciate you. If I missed anybody, I'm so sorry. I'm just like scrolling through the comments. We had some good participation. Birdie Durger, I love that name. Just a fun name to say. Yeah. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you have a good Friday night. And once again, if you haven't, that's correct though as well, coincidentally enough. Hawaii Sustainable Farm says, I said it again, but they say cheers, Cole. Cheers to you as well. And if you haven't seen my mini documentary yet, here is a preview. Have a great weekend. Like I said, we won't be live tomorrow, so sorry about that, but we'll figure out another time. Take care, everybody.
Beginning January 1st, 2020, the recreational use of cannabis will be legal in the state of Illinois.
Available to stream now, my mini doc dives into the history of Illinois legalization, starting with
January 1st. What should we expect? The biggest thing that we need people to understand is that January 1, in terms of the criminal justice system here in this state, is the end of prohibition.
See how Illinois missed its chance at real cannabis reform with key failures, including the fact that
the program includes regulation on possession limits.
So people can still be arrested for a possession.
And I want to highlight that in its first year of legalized recreational marijuana in the state of Illinois, they arrested 3 times as many black people for possession than any other race.
We've run into so much cannabis, we've run out of places to put it.
I have represented people and taken their cases through the court system who got charged with more serious crimes only because the police said that they smoked cannabis. And not because the police said you have illegal cannabis, or not because you have too much cannabis, or not because you're high on cannabis, but because I can smell it and that's it.
Attorney goes, he understands that he can't be smoking and his cannabis flower shouldn't be open. And I was like, I'd like to say for the record that I was not smoking and my flower was not open.
So that's where we're at right now in Illinois, and I hope it changes.
Start watching now at colememo.com/minidoc.